thousands of members. We are sponsored by Tableau, and maybe if you know about Tableau, you're familiar with Tableau user groups. So this is something very similar, with the difference being that we can talk about anything, not just Tableau, although we are big Tableau fans and we do end up talking about Tableau a lot. And I think this will be a big portion of the conversation today as well. Okay, so how is today going to work? I think Fatima just hit the record button for me. Thank you, Fatima. So, oh, Annabelle, thank you, Annabelle. Annabelle just hit the record button for me. Thank you, Annabelle, which means that we are recording this session and we will make the recording available to you. Any technical material that our presenters are showing, it will also be made available to you if it's relevant. We are planning a next event in September, so stay tuned for that. And we'll send you an email in the coming days with basically everything you need to know about this session. All right, so I hope you enjoyed the event. This is a Zoom meeting, so everyone is really welcome to participate and unmute and ask questions and discuss with our speakers and with us. And yeah, have fun. So let's have a look at today's agenda. I'm really so happy to welcome Marian Eerens and Annabelle Rincon. The topic of today is dashboard design, and Marian will discuss the principles of good dashboard design, and Annabelle will be talking about designing your dashboards for performance. So I'm really excited to hear from them. And I'll hand over to Marian first. Thank you so much. I'll stop sharing. And Marian, can you hear us? Okay, Marian is sharing.
Sorry, I was talking to myself.
You were, but I can hear you now. Excellent.
Good, okay. Okay, so it should come up. Let me just, everyone can see that, right? The big square? Okay, good. Thank you again for that introduction, and thanks for inviting me. It's great to be here and be a co-speaker with Annabelle. So we'll hear from her later, so please make sure that you stick around for that. If you came out to see me, I'll be sans camera today. I had some technical difficulties, so I do apologize for that, but I do hope that the content makes up for it. So today, we're going to talk about something that I really became fascinated with after seeing Rams, which is a great documentary by Gary Huswit. If you're interested in design, I highly recommend that you check it out. Beyond the great storytelling, what really struck me were Dieter Rams's 10 principles of good design, which I think are still very much relevant today when we look at product design. And they could also easily be translated to the design of digital products like websites or business dashboards. And Rams describes product design as the total configuration of a product. So that means form, color, material, and construction, which I think is very similar to those things that you would and should pay attention to when you're designing a dashboard that you want people to actually use and get value from. So let me go to the next one, if it will cooperate. Sorry. Okay. So first, some introductions, a little bit about me. My name is Marian Eerens. I'm based in Belgium, born and raised, and I currently work as an analyst and data visualist, where I support our commercial leaders to make better and more informed decisions using the power of visual analytics. I'm not going to go into the full rundown of my pedigree. If after this talk you're still interested to know more, or you want to connect, you can just scan the QR code that you see on the screen there, and it should take you to my Tableau public profile that has the links to everything else. So before we get into the topic of today, which is all about how we design better dashboards, I have a bit of a confession. I've never really considered myself to be a data person, in the sense that I don't sleep, eat, and drink numbers. I always call myself a visualist first and analyst second, and that's really what works for me. That's my process. And the reason why I put these pictures up there don't have anything to do with data or me being an analyst or even the topic of today, they're more of an example of how I tend to look at things from like a slightly different angle. And you can tell that these aren't the obvious pictures of things like landscapes or, hey, you know, me in front of this building in this awesome place, but more the things that catch my eye and make me want to take a closer look, which I think is very similar to the process of designing dashboards. At least that's how it works for me. So let's get started. I'm hoping this slides through. Okay, so who remembers seeing any of these items in their household? And it could be this one or any other Braun appliance for that matter. And feel free to put them in the chat. I don't know if I can see the chat. Can I see the chat? Let's see. Maybe someone can read it out for me. I don't know if I can open it up. Is that going to come up screen now? Oh, how do I pop this open? Oh, well, people remember, which is good.
We are getting a couple of childhood memories, yes.
Yeah, and these are just, of course, a few of the many great designs by Dieter Rams. Chances are, if you grew up anywhere between like 1950 and 1995, you will have had a Braun appliance in your household, designed by Dieter and his teams. And the ones that I'm showing are just the ones that I remember from growing up, and I'm probably giving away my real age a little bit here, but the shaving kit, that was my dad's. My mom was a big fan of the Citramatic. I remember we used to have a lot of freshly squeezed orange juice. and the small calculator is something that we had lying around that we always used to play with. We were not supposed to, but we did it anyway. So looking back at all of these designs, what I've really come to appreciate is the thoughtfulness that went into all of the different design choices that he made when creating those, and not to make something more beautiful, but to make it better. And that's the thought process I see coming back more and more as organizations are scaling their digital offerings, both internally and externally. So let's go to the next one. As I mentioned before, I'm a big fan of the aesthetics of the design. And I wonder if anyone can pick out the image that inspired the design of another iconic product. And it's not a Braun one. So if anyone can tell me which one it is and what it reminds you of. I'm hoping there's someone. Oh, yeah, close.
No, the one for the music. What?
Yeah. It is actually, yeah, you're right. It is actually the iPod. Thank you. Johnny Ive, who designed for Apple from, I think, the early 90s, and he moved on somewhere in 2019, I think. He was also widely known for his like minimalist design. And I don't think it comes as a surprise, like how much he was influenced by Rams, who some call the master of intuitive design. So that would mean like you could like look at the product and you would know exactly what it was and how to use it. And for me, that is what the art of design is all about. It's basically eliminating the need for a user manual, right? You take away all of the clutter and noise, and you're just left with the product. And similar, to a business dashboard, you only have a few seconds to grab your user's attention and inform them of what it can do for them. So the choices that you make when putting it together, they do actually matter. And when I was watching the documentary, I remember the first 5 to 10 minutes, all I did, I was like taking notes. Like everything that he said, I kind of writing it down, and it very much clicked with me. And as we go through this, I want you to keep in mind the following quote. It says, "For design to be understood by everyone, it should be as simple as possible." And these are, of course, not my words. Now, what I thought we would do for the rest of my time, and I don't know how much time we have or if we're going to have a conversation after, but I thought we would go through the 10 principles. And if you have any thoughts or questions or comments, or you don't agree with what I'm saying, please leave them in the chat box, right? And at the end, we're going to go through them. I should also add, these principles were never meant to be an absolute thing. I think when you put them into words, they were always meant to be updated. And feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't think they have. And I think that's perhaps because the times that we live in now are in a way very similar to when he wrote them. Like in a world where everything is moving so fast, you can see this change coming where more and more we're getting rid of excess and visual clutter. And that's why I believe as principles, with some fine tuning or some translation, they are still very much relevant today. I should also add, this is very much my own personal interpretation. So if you disagree with them, feel free to let me know. Always open for a healthy dialogue. Okay, so let's go through them. Number one, and if I'm pretty sure maybe you might have seen a poster somewhere that has all of them on there. I'll be sharing a document at the end that has some links to some resources. So feel free to investigate further. Like I said, number one, good design is innovative. And I think that means it doesn't create novelty just for the sake of it, right? It innovates to improve the functionality of a product. And while technology can certainly play a role in that, I don't think it's technology alone that drives innovation in how we design better business dashboards. I think sometimes we tend to get lost in trying out new technology and features just to create the next thing. But at the end of the day, those new things don't really serve your user or give them a better experience. So in that sense, they become redundant. Number two, a good design makes a product useful, which means it ignores, or I think it should ignore, anything that doesn't serve a purpose and works against a product's own usefulness. When I think about how this translates to the design of a business dashboard, I think about how you can optimize the utility of that product. And by that, I mean, don't add anything that doesn't serve a purpose. Make your dashboard easy for your users to interact with so that they actually enjoy the experience and they want to come back for more. Okay. Number three, good design is aesthetic. And that the pronunciation of that word always trips me up, by the way. So I hope I got it right. And when I mean aesthetic, we're not talking about making things pretty, right? The aesthetic quality of a product, and by extension, its fascination, plays a role in how we perceive something to be useful or not. And while you can argue that this is very much subjective, I don't think it takes a genius to appreciate that a dashboard that is overcrowded and confusing to look at is going to get on people's nerves and not hold their attention for the time that we need it to be able to draw them in, right? You want to cut down on the cognitive load by being purposeful in your choice of visual elements like color and fonts. Don't go for what's cool and new, but be neutral and focused instead. Number four, good design makes a product understandable. And this is where we get into how design can clarify the structure of a product. It should make it self-explanatory. When I think about putting together a dashboard, I do spend a considerable amount of time thinking through the structure and how am I going to lay out all of the different pieces so that it almost becomes self-explanatory and I don't need to write these super detailed instructions for how the user should interact with the dashboard to get to the desired insights. The choices that you make should all be aimed at limiting your users' frustration so that they can, and I've mentioned this before, can actually enjoy the experience and come back for more. And I think this is very much part of how you drive enablement, by the way, by making it easy and seamless, and so that the users can understand the with them or what's in it for me, right? That should be simple. It shouldn't be complicated. Number five, good design is unobtrusive. And I quite like this word, but I had to look it up what it actually means. Being unobtrusive means not attracting attention to yourself, in the sense that your dashboards shouldn't be decorative objects or work of arts. They should stay in the background, so to speak, and leave space for your user to explore. When I think about how this translates to the design of business dashboards, I think about things like leaving sufficient white space so your user can explore without getting overwhelmed by all of these redundant details. Number six, good design is honest, meaning it doesn't mislead the user into thinking a product is something that it's not, right? It should not attempt to try and manipulate or deceive the user. In the way that a dashboard shouldn't lie, in a sense that we as designers shouldn't manipulate certain elements so that the visual better fits our narrative. And I see this happen all the time. Also think about how you can add sufficient context so your user is clear on what they are viewing and they can actually trust the data that they are processing. If you're in the business of visualizing data, I'm sure you can all come up with plenty of examples of what not to do. I'm thinking of things like avoiding to cut off the vertical axis on your bar chart, for example. That's something that I see happen a lot, and I always make it a point of pointing out to people why it's wrong and actually show them why it's wrong. Okay, number 7. Good design is long lasting. And I think there's different ways of interpreting this. In the world of product design, it'll probably be more about creating something long lasting versus trendy and fashionable, something that will stand the test of time. When I think about long lasting business dashboards, I think about how we should treat dashboards more like products, right? A lot of the time we tend to create things that serve a singular purpose, and then someone else comes along and creates a slightly different version of the same thing, and then again and again and again. And this is how we end up with a lot of clutter that no one is using anymore, while we could have easily designed a single product had we invested more time in scoping out the initial dashboard and involve all the different stakeholders in the process. So that's my interpretation of that. And I've been going on for a while. Does anyone have any thoughts they want to share, or anything that they don't agree with? Let's see. I hope that no one agrees. Can you give reference to the document?
Can I say something?
Yes.
On this point?
Yes.
I mean, when I read this, I was thinking about all the dashboards that I've made.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in conjunction to dashboards and not iPads, but it is true that they are not super long lasting. I do not expect these dashboards to be used 5 years later. If they are, I think there's a problem with the company.
True, but what I mean is long lasting in a sense that something can be long lasting, but it's just something that's updated, right? You treat it as a product. There's release 1 and there's release 2. It's very different, right, versus putting out 5 different versions of the same thing because someone wants to see a different piece of information or wants to use a different filter. And in the end, you have like 6 different things, while that easily could have been one product that you just update regularly. It doesn't mean it doesn't change. For me anyway, right? That's my take on it. It doesn't mean it doesn't change for 5 years, but you build on that. And I think that's a better way to go about it. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good clarification. Okay. By the way, someone on the chat does not agree with number 5.
I see that. What was number 5 again? Let me just go back. Unobtrusive. That's a trick. Yeah. I think that was Robert made the comment, right? He doesn't agree with number 5. I think I struggle. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it depends. So for Brian, maybe he does not want to he doesn't view good design as design that's unobtrusive, but that doesn't mean someone else might see design as being obtrusive purposefully.
Yeah, and I think there's a fine line, right? Between, for me anyway, that's how I see it. There's a fine line between.
For example, Mona Chalabi, a lot of her designs are very obtrusive for a reason. They want to spark conversation, potentially revolution.
No, absolutely. And like I said, these are not absolute things or absolute concepts. I think they were never meant to be. I certainly don't take them as such. I was just thinking about how they translate to what I do. And that's a very different style of product than what you mentioned that Mona Chalabi creates, right? That's a whole other purpose. So, and I agree. It's kind of a fine line, and it very much depends on what your outcome is, what you want the outcome to be. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I get it.
Okay. Let's see what else we had. I have to remember where we were. We were at 7, right? Okay. Yeah. Rules made to be broken. Absolutely. Not adding instructions is something that I disagree with. I don't, there's a fine line between adding comments and having to write like a whole manual for someone to be able to use something. I think that's kind of, it doesn't mean that you can't add text, but if you have to write a full page so that someone can actually use it, I think then you're doing something wrong. That's my take on that. Does that make sense?
If I may, can everybody hear me? I apologize.
Yeah, no, you can. Go ahead.
So just to kind of on that point, I think that concise instruction is very important. I always I'm in the mindset of you should be able to hand a dashboard to your grandma and they should be able to look at it and understand what to do, right? Mm-hmm. And so if there is like drop downs are a little bit easier because they do have that drop down list, mm-hmm. but sometimes it's like a click here to, or, click and drag your marks or to select your marks, things like that provide, it doesn't have to be a whole paragraph, but just concise instruction. And like you said, in this design where it's small and easy to read, and aesthetically pleasing. Sorry.
No, that's totally fair. I'm happy that we're having a conversation instead of me just going on and on. So I appreciate that. And like I said, this is very much kind of seen from my viewpoint. I'm not saying don't add anything. I do add like small sentences as well on occasion, right? It very much depends on the content. So I do tend to put things on there, but I think if you have to like go into super detail of how to actually use it, then that's kind of where you're missing out. But I do agree, like small comments and well placed, they can definitely add. I see someone raising their hand. Says Shams raising. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, it's me, Shams. I want some advice from you or from anyone who has a lot of experience with the picky users. Let's imagine a dashboard that is going to serve 1,000 users, and we know that maybe 100 of them or maybe 200 are very, very picky, and they're going to make the dashboard more complex for the 80% that are remaining and that are not too picky. How do you deal with this kind of situations? Because they are the one making it more complex for the others because they want more. I don't know if you understood my question. How do you deal with these kind of users?
So I'm just going to speak for me, and then I'm sure other folks want to jump in and say something, so feel free to. But for me, I always try to find out why they're asking for these things, because in my experience, and I'm speaking from my perspective, a lot of the time people are not really, how should I put this? I always try to get to why, because maybe there's a way that information, they could access that information, but they just don't know how to. So I do try to engage, to have that conversation first before I do anything. And sometimes, and I maybe shouldn't say this, but sometimes I have to say no, because if there's no valid reason for why they're asking, or if they cannot explain to me why they're asking for it, then I think it's more of a personal preference. And I don't know how much room you can have there to kind of override an entire design just because one person likes to see something different. And I see more hands. So I think Robert first and then Cham second.
Yeah, well, I was gonna point out a point you had made earlier. If your user who's making this thing more complex than it needs to be are not approaching their design from a product development standpoint, then they don't have the appropriate filters. If you introduce a feature to a product and you just shove it in there, and that is not serving the end user's goals that they have in mind, then that feature doesn't get added. So that is the pushback I would give them. I would ask them, oh, you're adding this feature. How does that map to the objective that this product that's being designed is meant to serve? If it works in favor of the product, cool, it's a value add. If it doesn't, then it's really clear that shouldn't be added.
Yeah, you just explained it a whole lot better than I could, so thank you. Did we have anyone else raising their hand? Chance, do you want to add anything to that, or?
No, thanks for the experience. How do you call it?
Okay.
The feedback. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing. Did you have anything does anyone have anything to add, or because I see the hand going up? No. Okay. Cool. So I think I have to go fast forward now. We did long lasting. So we have 3 more to go. Okay. Then good design is, this is number 8. Good design is thorough down to the last detail. And I really like the explanation from the book, less is better. So I'm going to read that out to you and see if that resonates. Thoroughness and accuracy in design are expressions of respect for the product, for its functions, as well as the user. And I would like to, how I would translate that is, don't leave things to chance, but think through how all of the choices that you're making in putting this together will help the user have a better experience when they're using your dashboard. Because at the end of the day, it's really all about them and not about you. I hope that makes sense, or maybe I'm just rambling on, but that's kind of how I interpret that. Great. Okay, then we're going to move on to number 9. Good design is environmentally friendly. And I suppose you could ask yourself, what does design of digital products have to do with the environment? You know, it may not be as obvious as the whole print versus digital discussion, but there are things you can do when designing to reduce your digital carbon footprint. And I know a lot of people, including myself until just like a couple of days ago, may not be aware of this, but the transfer of data actually requires electricity, which in turn creates carbon emissions, which impacts our environment. I'll be sharing a link to a small document that I put together that contains a lot of the inspiration for this talk today. And I also added the link to an article on something called digital sustainability, which I recommend you check out. It mentions, and I was quite struck by these numbers, it mentions that the internet is responsible for 3.5 of the CO2 emissions per year, which equals the number for the airline industry. So I think by what this means is by being, how I would translate this is by being mindful about things like where you store your data. By designing for accessibility, you can make a real impact. And then finally, and this is where we get to number 10, and this is kind of the summary of everything. And again, to put it into context, good design is as little design as possible. It's less design, but better. And I think a well-designed dashboard lets your users focus on what's important by cutting out everything that is not essential. You know, it's something that people actually want to use and see more of. And I very much believe that one good design can drive engagement for the other content that you'll be creating. So being thoughtful can really make a difference with the overall engagement. And that was it. This is the link. If you punch that link into your browser, it'll take you to that document that I just mentioned. It has the links to all of well, not all of them, but most the interesting articles that I read. It has a link to the documentary, some videos, and where you can get the images, and we'll get some posters and colors and all of that. So for the fans, just type that in and you can read up on it for yourself. So that was it for me. I don't know, does anyone have any final thoughts that they want to share, or any questions that they want to throw in the group? Someone's raising their hand. Alexandra, hello.
The point about the thorough design, I think it was the 8th one. It reminded me of a more broad question I've been thinking about recently about perfection. And especially I think about it often when I'm making different designs, because I want everything to be perfect. And I sometimes find myself spending hours on some little details that most people probably won't notice. And I was wondering your take on that, perfection versus trying to be efficient.
I think it depends on what you want to be perfect, right? I recognize that very much, because I can obsess over details, and then afterwards, like people kind of start using your product and it's super easy, and they don't realize how much time, how long you've been agonizing over the color or things like font size. I don't know. Does anyone have any thoughts on that? Because I'm kind of in that boat as well. Like I tend to probably assess too much over small things. What I don't perceive them to be small, but what others will be. So does anyone have anything to share on that? Because I'm not the best person to ask. Anyone else?
I can, from my experience on that.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know, you learn a lot from doing it hard for a really long time. So I think there's value in like pushing pixels for a while, because then you begin to develop an intuition for what's worth perfecting.
Yeah.
And for me, nailing the Gestalt like psychology helps you understand how to 80-20 your time. Yeah. So if it's like adjusting something that isn't really benefiting the uptake of that information in the eyes of your audience, then you know that maybe you shouldn't be spending your time there.
Yeah.
But it's fun to noodle. If you have the time, great. Like you're strengthening your skills. But if you're time crunched, then maybe just focusing it on the Gestalt psychology, like those principles, they're going to benefit your audience the most and align with the objectives.
Yeah, that's actually great input. I like to, did you call it noodle? I like to noodle or doodle. Yeah, that's me. I like to, and I usually probably give myself a little bit of extra time for that. So, because that's I don't want to say the part that I enjoy most, but I do like tinkering around. So
I think that's valuable. It makes it yours, and your work's great. So it's worth it.
Okay, someone said, how can we justify less is more? I thought about this. Less is more regarding dashboards design specifically, as sometimes different stakeholders demand the dashboard feasibilities as per their convenience. And I think Robert made a good point in that as well earlier. Are you talking about, I'm not sure how I'm supposed to take this.
Can I say something?
Sure, please go ahead.
I was just thinking on this point 8 that you have up on the slide, and then I saw this question. I think to some extent, talking about dashboard design in specific and not design in general, I think we also have to have some confidence in our audience.
Yeah.
And less is more is, to me, it's like, if they demand something, give it to them. And for me, more often than not, they come back and tell you to remove stuff because they realize how annoying it is. You know, they asked for 10 buttons to go to 10 different dashboards, and then they realize that it's cumbersome.
Yeah.
So sometimes you kind of have to let the audience look at it if they are too pushy, and as you say, different stakeholders, yes, it's a mess, but they more often than not, they realize that indeed less is more.
Yeah, what I've come to find is at least having the conversation, asking people why they're asking for something, because sometimes I can convince them that what they're looking for is actually not A, but it's B, and then I kind of point them towards that path. So, okay, someone says less is more means for me focus on the data and remove everything that don't bring anything. Well, that's actually true. Okay, so yes, that is me done. I'll paste the link in the, well, it's easy to remember, but I'll paste it in the chat if anyone wants to go take a look. So thank you very much for sticking around, and I really enjoyed the conversation and the feedback that everyone had. So that was really useful. Okay, now I think it's time for Annabelle. Stop sharing my screen.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Marian. It was very wonderful. I'm very much looking forward to going through all the resources you presented.
Yeah, the documentary, I do recommend watching that, because I personally thought it was great.
Do we have the link to the documentary?
Yeah, the link is in there. I should say the link, it's not free. It was free, I think, last week, because it was his birthday, and the documentary maker, he made it available for like 2 days, but you can rent it for like, I think it's 2 or 3, it's like €4, if not that. but it's definitely worth it. And there's some great articles in there as well. And definitely check out if you're a fan of graphic design, I put a link in there to Systems, which is kind of all different graphic designers that like recreate some of the run posters based on how they see certain things. And those are really cool. So do take a look. But yes,
nice.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and we'll be sharing this along with all the material from today's session. Yeah. We'll be sharing this collection of
the link. I'll post it in, and you can share it everywhere. Yeah, you can share it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Marian. It was a really wonderful presentation and wonderful discussion. So thank you everyone who participated. I think we can hand over to Annabelle now. Hello, Annabelle.
Oh, I will start sharing my screen. Let's see if I do it correctly. I often don't do it correctly.
Okay. It's perfect.
So please be nice with me. The design has been done by myself. And I think it's very difficult to pass just after Marian, because the talk was very great. So today I will speak about how to design your dashboard for better performance and adoption. So we'll not speak about the design part per se, less is more on everything, but very about what is behind everything. So I was already introduced, but I can reintroduce myself. I'm a Tableau social ambassador. I love my passion in life are Tableau, my dog and chocolate. I often say that I have a second job after my current job is like doing all these webinars and all these blog posts. I am working as a Tableau Center of Enablement or Excellence Lead for a Swiss bank. And I'm also co-leading two initiatives, so Data Plus Women in Zurich and a Tableau Analytic user group. Here you have the QR code if you want to register. And if you want to speak at one or event, please contact me. So let's go for the first topic. So when I said here, you have two things to consider. It's really performance and adoption, and all are linked together. You cannot do, it's like, if your dashboard is slow, people will not go. So you will lose some adoption. And if it's like not matching their purpose or their proper usage, they will not also go. So try to think about both topics when you're designing. So to increase the adoption is really like to think about, understand the usage, why they want this dashboard, who will be looking at it, what they want to analyze or monitor, how you want to use this information. If they're expecting to have an interactive dashboard and you don't do an interactive dashboard, or if you don't think about, hey, they want to print it, or they want to use it on a PowerPoint, or they want to use it on mobile, it's very, very different. And you have to ask this question. The same, how often do you want to use this dashboard? If your dashboard, you say, hey, no, once a week, it's enough. I just go on Friday afternoon. Don't do an extract of your data every 5 minutes. Please don't do that for a lot of reasons. I'm also a Tableau server admin, so that's why I please match the usage of your dashboard to your refresh of your data. Or the same, how familiar are the user with the topic and the data, or even the technology? If they are very familiar, that's fine. You can put some instruction like under the title, click to filter. They will understand, or like a little icon or anything. But if it's not the case, you will probably have to run some Tableau demo, make some user guide, even very simple, but like to keep up with them. Don't think that your job is done just after publishing a dashboard in Tableau server. No, you have to go there. You have to see, okay, is my loading time, it's okay. He's like my user going and really accessing. So I often do like some start usage after that. And yes, and to see and keep track on what is going on, because if it's not accessing, when they really want this dashboard and they pay for it because they pay your salary to deploy it, that means that something is going on. So it can be, it's most often the usage and the performance, but both are very important. So for this for this webinar, I use some marathon data. So we will have, I mean, I said that for performance, it can be fun to have runner data. So I will be asking the same question that we have here, but on the case that, okay, I'm a runner and I want a dashboard for tracking my performance on my runs. So let's see. Who will be using the dashboard that I will do on this runner case? The runner. What the runner wants to monitor. He wants probably to monitor the heartbeat, the running time, the running distance, I don't know, where he is on the map or something. How will be using this information? Most probably while running. He wants to see on his iPad or in his little watch, okay, is my heartbeat correct? Is I'm running too fast? You know, like, so, and he probably check every 5 minutes. And maybe he wants even an alert to tell him, hey, you're going too fast. If you want to run, I don't know, 20, 30 kilometers. My God, I cannot even do 10 kilometers, but no matter. You want maybe to have an alert to tell you, hey, you're going too fast or too slow. And every question here is very important. Why? Because now I just say to you that the runner wants to watch this dashboard on a phone or on a watch, meaning that you will not design it the same way. So for instance, by doing that, you would probably do something very simple with just tracking the distance I'm running, the pace I'm going, the heartbeat, the altitude and everything. This data, I have the permission to take it. It's like the data from IFForm. IFForm is like a previous Tableau and Master from France. And he has done a lot of dashboard about his tracking, running. I mean, I think it's a marathonian. So, and that is a version that he could access, for instance, that I designed it very quickly in his phone. But if the runner wants to have like, that's what I said before. Here, I want something that I can consume while running. But I would like also to have a view that I can consume peacefully at home. And here it's like the dashboard that he has done on his on Strava and checking all his activity. You see the dashboard here, I will not explain what it's about. You can go, the full presentation will be published on my Tableau public profile, so you can click, and you will also have the link to his dashboard, so you can have a look. Why I said that? You see here, it's very complex. That is not to consume while running. That is to consume after the runs and checking, okay, I am doing progress. Yes, this day, I had a problem maybe, or here I am like practice, I am doing too much practice. It's really after that, after the run. And you see two different dashboards, two different objectives of the same data. And it's that what I want to tell you. You really have to center the dashboard and yourself to the usage. It's very important. I see often like dashboards that are not consumable or not given to the right people. And in the real life, it's exactly the same. It's the same when you want to do the distinction between a KPI dashboard for executive and an analytic dashboard for analyst. It's the same. You are not providing the same information or the same degree of detail. An executive wants big number, most probably, and maybe if I ask a question, the possibility to drill down. But often we don't provide this kind of information because they are not interesting. An analyst maybe wants to see much more detail. So really think about, before designing anything, thinking about your audience and what they want and how they will be consuming it. And it's also important because it impacts the performance. If I have like this, I like this market Marketonist, I cannot even pronounce the name. Yeah, if you give like a dashboard with every KPI on Earth here, I don't know how many they have, like maybe 50. Obviously, the dashboard will be slow and it will not be used because it's like too much information to be really. So about performance, let me drink some water. I'm speaking too fast and too much. About performance, what do you mean about performance? We often speak about the loading time. So the loading time, it's everything that go from, it's everything that go from the browser to the data and passing by Tableau and coming back to the browser. So meaning that it starts with a click by the user when he wants to interact with the dashboard. So that's request this, that's load this in Tableau. It sends a query to the data, and that doesn't matter that if the data come from a published data set, a live connection, or an extract, it will send the query to the data. Obviously, depending if it's a live connection, an extract, or a published data set, that will have different consequences, but it's like the same, the process is the same. It runs the query, that returns the data, computes the model, sends the model, and renders a piece. So when you have like a performance issue, it's really can come from these three different parts. It can be, you can have like, sorry, not very good playing with annotation. It can come really from the browser, from Tableau, or the data. And it's not, often I heard like people saying, it has to come from the Tableau design, and it's true, it can come from the Tableau design, but it can really also come from the data. So let me show you how we check the performance. So, I mean, I can go directly, I don't have the screen. So here it's a dashboard about London marathon runners from a special edition. So we have, and I will have to explain because this dashboard is not very well done. You have first here the information of how many female runner and male runner run this marathon. And I think I have an issue. Yeah, because I should have much more. So I'm just checking what is happening. Okay, I think I have something weird. Indeed, sorry. You see much more runners. So I have this, the number of runner, female runner, male runner, the detail by age group. Here, every dot is a certain runner. And if I play and I click and I declick and I probably generate an issue, I will see that I have this computing window that arrives and it's not very fast, right? So let's see what is happening. So to do that, you just have to go to help. Obviously, when you have a performance issue, you go and ask for help. So it's a good memo technique. So you go to setting and performance and you click on start recording. And here, the idea is really to use click everywhere you can in order to generate like what your user will try to do, the user experience. So when you have finished clicking and testing everywhere, you can go back to help and again, setting and performance and stop the performance recording. And that will open a new dashboard. So it will take some seconds. You will see the design of this dashboard is not very good, but at least you can see some things. So you can see already that one of the calls that I have done by clicking, I've taken 2.8 seconds. You can tell me, hey, 2 seconds is not bad, Annabelle. Yes,
You are muted, Annabelle.
I just clicked to unmute, but I don't know. Okay.
What did you lose?
You were talking
You may
about
think,
the few seconds that were not bad.
Okay, that's good. I often make something weird so during presentation, so everything is fine. So here, what you can see already, it's where this big, this 2.8 second is coming from. And it's coming from this worksheet, use special mark on the calculation. And if I go back to my previous dashboard, we can check. Just have to move the window around. So here it's this one, use special mark on the calculation, that indeed use string calculation, Tableau, calc, and everything. So, and on top of that is like displaying these 40,000 runners. So that's why it's kind of very demanding for Tableau. And you have this special calculation. So obviously I could leave it like this. I mean, if I have to do this for work, I will probably read on it and rethink a lot of part of it. I will show you at the end of the presentation what are the talks. So let me just give you some consideration each time for data, filter, calculation, and everything. So for some data consideration. So if your data is very slow, your data source is slow, it will be slow in Tableau Desktop and it will be slow in Tableau Server. You can try to do an extract, but that will be faster, but you're just pushing the problem somewhere else. It's better to have really your data clean up. Have your data structured in the correct way to be able to answer your question, that's for sure. Keep only what you need. If you need 20 columns, don't push a data source with 200 columns. The same, if you need only the last 3 months, don't push the data or do an extract with billions of rows for like the past 20 years. And I say it, and I will, because I've seen that every day. It's very, very frustrating. When you have like a dashboard, several dashboards using the same data source and on the same level of detail, and it's already cleaned up, you can publish this data source and use it to different dashboards. If it's not the case, I always recommend to have either separate data source or to match perfectly the structure of your dashboard. Something I really like also, it's this hot, warm, cold approach. That is a full webinar. So I would just mention it and say that you can find everything online. The idea here, it's really to use different data sets to display different level of aggregation. So you often see when you have transactional data or like a flight, you see demo often with flights data. So the idea is really to have like an aggregated data set. And for instance, I don't know, like the number of flights that you have, very aggregated. And after, when you do a selection, for instance, by country, and when you do a selection by country, you pass to a second data set that show more detail, or like maybe by company or something like that. And after, and you drill down like this in order to have like, to be more effective and more performing. So next topic, filters. And no, I'm not taking any question. You cannot raise your hand, Marian, like this.
Why? I cannot raise my hand. I wish I was being polite.
Please, do you have a question?
No, it's just interesting. This is all very useful for me because I'm having some of these conversations at work about performance, and something that I've always was curious about is how much of a difference does embedding a data source make when embedding a data sources versus published ones? How much of an impact that has on your performance? And also if you have those data sources, that published data sources that you're working with, how much is hiding fields that you don't use? Does that actually have enough of a push to help, or doesn't that really matter anymore? And those are really specific questions, so we can come back to that later if that's too specific.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
So I prefer to work with embedded.
Yeah.
Because I can really customize the field that I need for this dashboard.
Mm-hmm.
If I publish a data set, like I said here, if you publish a data set, you cannot customize. So you have to have your published data set, and after different dashboard connecting to this data set, meaning that if the dashboard 1 is using 20 fields, but the dashboard 2 is using 200, I will need to have on my data set these 200 fields.
Okay.
It's really like testing.
Mm.
So, which you will tell me, yes, but this published data source will just refresh once. So you really have to take into consideration the loading time, but also the refresh, how many resources it consumes.
Yeah.
So often by experience, I prefer embedded, but in some cases I use published data source. So it's not really true. And yes, the field, it's working better, but Tableau also during the extract refresh, it's like call it. So it's like some loadings also. It's better to have a view on your data source that is specific, and you connect your dashboard to this specific view. It's often, you will gain off performance.
No, I always wonder about that, because I try to be mindful, but there's only so much like within my control. So no, thank you for clearing it up.
And I wanted to say something else, but maybe I will remember.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, about this, to answer your question. I will remember. So about filter, the same. Try to limit the use of the filter. I know sometimes it's not easy. I often say that if you have 20 filters on the right-hand side, for instance, that means that you are not doing your job correctly. Because you didn't think so much about the usage, or the user doesn't have all the view in it. So yes, what you also can say, it's like, so let me show you, for example, some case for user. If I go here for filter, if I go here, you see here I have a long list. I will not display a filter like this to my user, because as soon as they will like try to click, Tableau will start working. I mean, I can do it. I don't know what will happen. So you will see it will be like one, like this, and it will be maybe, it will be charging. So I really prefer to apply, to customize here and show apply button. So when my user finish answering all the questions, it apply, and that send on the performance, and that will be send only one call on the performance. So that's what I prefer. Again, something that you have to consider, prefer uses include value instead of exclude. So now, if you don't have a problem on your dashboard and you use exclude value, and you use this kind of filter, don't listen to me. It's just like, if you have performance issue, you should be mindful that every little choice have a consequence, and that maybe that choice will change everything. And often what is like a problem in performance is only relevant value. So let's imagine that you have this 20 filter. So each time you will hit on filter 1 something, and you have the other filter being relevant value, that will send a query to Tableau in order to display only the relevant value. And that is performance consuming. So I just wanted to be sure that you know that. So here you see you have that. Continuous data filter are quicker than discrete, like for sure. Boolean, again, another word that I cannot pronounce. Much faster than strings. Yeah, you see, I will not go through all the points. I just wanted to give the most of them. Yes, something I like also, it's data source filter. Yeah, I mean, if you cannot change your data source, but you don't need everything, it's better to make this filter as a data source filter even before the view is scheduled. And yeah, the same on parameter. Try not to have so many parameters. And when I said so many, it's like 20, 30, 100, 200. Please don't do that. And again, I have seen it, so that's why I'm speaking about experience. And obviously, string parameter are a little slower than integer parameter. So please feel free to interrupt me, or after the session, I can answer any question. I can also ask question, but.
Annabelle, maybe there is a question in the chat that we can go over right now from Rohit. Do the number of worksheets and dashboards also reduce performance? Yes,
that will be my second point after calculation.
Fantastic, so we'll get to it.
The audience is very curious today. So calculation, I know that is boring, guys, huh? But that is the true reality. Yeah, some data type are like more slow than other. If you do a condistinct, I don't say that don't do condistinct, please do it. But if you have a problem, be aware that maybe that is like the culprit. So yes, obviously you have like some row level calculation that are a little slower, that's fine. Prefer some to condistinct, that's also fine. You have like, see, if you have very complex LODs, you may want to pass this calculation on the data source, not on Tableau. The same for table calculation. But I mean, in the past years, I have been like crazy LOD calculation and crazy table calculation, and my performance are fine. So I just want that you be aware that every single decision that you are taking can impact the performance. And again, if the performance is low, your dashboard will not be seen at all. I'm checking. Yeah, I think on calculation I'm fine. Workbook design. Hey. So one main point is like avoid hide card counts. So what does it mean? I mean, it's like all the little mark that you have on your work sheet or workbook. So for instance, if I go back to this dashboard performing, all these little points, I mean, Tableau, it's fast and it has been faster in the past year to display everything, but that is time consuming. Tableau has to draw a point for every, and how many points do we have here? How many mark? You can see this kind of information here on the bottom left. So we have 440,000 marks. So it's not so much, but is it very useful? It's kind of cool. I can hover. I can see that this point is Sharon. Do I need that? Probably not. So why I am like pushing Tableau to display every point? That's what I think that in dashboard design. The same as a text table with a lot of mark, like the one that I just displayed with little star. Is it useful? Probably not. If you are using a lot of image or custom shape, be aware that can have an impact on the performance. And yeah, in terms of design, like Marian said, display only what is useful. If it's not useful or not bring any value, don't put it. Yes, if I put a lot of worksheet on my dashboard, that have an impact, but wait for it. The same goes for the number of dashboard inside of a workbook. If I have 200 dashboards in one workbook, it's also very slow. It can be slow at least. And I recommend to separate them and have URL action to go in between. it's like for the user, it will be totally transparent, and but for performance, it will be much better. Yes, something, I will come back to this worksheet idea just after, but I just wanted to mention, because I don't want to forget, that this fix, you see, you have fixed size or automatic. This, when you select automatic, it's often like create a big issue, because for every screen, Tableau will render a different calculation. Tableau server will not be able to use its cache to render the view, because each time it will be like an automatic different layout, and it will come back and back again. And that will be very impactful for performance. It's better to have a fixed dashboard when you publish. That's very important. So about this number of worksheets. So for instance, I have this KPI dashboard. Sorry, this one is not about running. So how many worksheets do I have? I mean, you have seen it's fast, and just like for the principle, I just wanted to show you. Here you have like special calculation about year to date and year to date previous year and everything. And you have one worksheet for this one, and you have 4 different for the graphs. So you may want to change the graph as vertical, so you have only one. And this one also has vertical, so you have only one. Here it will not have a big impact. But sometimes I see people say, yes, no, I have like 10 worksheets on my dashboard, it will be slow. I will try to reduce them by adding LOD calculation and very complex calculation to be able to add this number on whatever. That you want me to consider what is the worst scenario. I mean, what we said in English, like the worst of two devil or something like that. So often we try to reduce the number of worksheets, but we increase the complexity, and that's create worse performances. So just be aware, try out, and test it with performance, like I said. So what I really like in terms of design, and that's also increase the usage and the performance, and it's this guide analytic. So focus on guide analytic by providing a drill down to detail, rather than trying to show everything at once with a lot of filter. I often see people say, yeah, I will put this big table here, and I will put this 20 filter on the right, on the left-hand side, on the top, whatever they want to put it. And voila. No, the user will not use it. It will not be good for them. So if I go back to this dashboard on London Marathon, a guide analytic could look like this. I still have on my top the number of female male runners, fine. But you see, instead of having all these dots, first, I have, first I don't have to click here. I have really the number of runners by age group. Before I didn't know how many runners I have. Now I know it. And easily I know also where my median of finish time, how much it is. So I can really see that this age group, for instance, is quite good. You see, in comparison. So I think this 60, 64, yeah, all are doing like a quite good marathon in comparison to, I don't know, like others that are younger. And I still see my top 10, which I'm good because I don't need more. And if I click somewhere, it just filters down. So now I see my top 10 for this 45, 49. And if I want, and I click here on the distribution of runner by finishing time. So I have 200 runners that have finished time in 18,000 seconds. Sorry, I didn't calculate how many 18,000 seconds are, but I'm sure that someone in the chat will write it. I can see the detail of this 200 mark on the view because I still want to see them. And if I hover, I can still see who among these 11, so for instance, for Kelly Nicola, there is 11 runners that run exactly on the same finish and half time. That can be a drill down analysis. I don't again, I will not win a prize with this dashboard. It just makes it useful. And in terms of performance, it's much better. You see, it was automatic. Yeah, so to conclude, because otherwise I will speak too much, how do we increase adoption? So first, you need to track your adoption by checking the stat on Tableau server and see if you have a decrease on the adoption. That means that something is happening. Maybe it's a performance issue, maybe it's a usage. You have to reach out to them and say, okay, what is going on? You need to create the dashboard around their needs and make it simple for the user. Train them to use Tableau server. That's the good one. So often they don't know how to navigate. So train them to use Tableau server, train them to use your dashboard, add instruction, like we, very easy, click to filter, click to display the detail. Okay, I try to do it as simple as possible. And here what I have also done is like a little use guide. Very simple. So if I have like a question, yes, that what is mean? I mean, this one is quite easy, so but it's often useful for them. And of course, make it fast, so they don't have to wait too much. This presentation dashboard workbook will be published on my Tableau public profile today, and I add some resources. And now I think I can stop sharing and let's see if someone has a question or if someone is asleep.
You have a couple of points here. One was about what's your opinion about the performance of computer, laptop, mobile specs regarding Tableau performance?
I mean, if you put, yeah, here I can only say I have some experience with mobile, but I suppose that is like to have a dedicated view on the dashboard, right? With like pick up your device. I think that if you do it, really use this device view and do it like this. Don't click on automatic, because that will have a real impact. So it's often better to have this. I often do computer and mobile. I don't put a laptop. I mean, I don't design very big dashboard. I design like for like a normal screen that can be also viewed on a laptop. The workbook contains 2 dashboards, each connected to one different data source. Will clicking one dashboard have performance impact even when the user has not clicked the second dashboard in the same workbook?
I don't think so.
No, I was trying to, to reread if I have it.
Is there something about what I've started doing, and I've read about this, and I know if it's true or not, but let's just say in this use, and this is not the best use case, right? You have a workbook that has like 6 or 7, let's say 6 dashboards in them. Mm-hmm. What I started doing in my dashboards can create these custom, started creating these custom navigation panels. So I tend to hide the sheets on top. Okay. And then let the users click with the buttons. And from what I read was that it's for performance is better because it doesn't, if you have all of the tabs open on top, every time you load your dashboard, it has to load all of them at the same time. Instead of if you were to use a navigation, it goes from one to the other. I don't know if there's any truth in that.
No.
Okay.
When it's published on Tableau server, no. It will just load it when you will click on the first one.
Yeah, but if you have the tabs hidden, I think there's a difference in performance there.
I mean, on tab hidden on top.
Yeah, like if you don't have that navigate the sections, if you have them hidden on top, there's a difference, and that's what I understood anyway. A difference in performance. I don't know if that. I mean, I'll have to dig it up. I'll dig up the.
For instance, what has an impact, and I often see that. Is like, for instance, but it's not your case. It's like, imagine that you have this workbook with 5 or 6, 7 dashboards and you publish only one. That's no. That you need to remove the other one from your workbook and publish it, because it will be sent to Tableau server and it will be, have some space.
Even if you don't publish the dash, like, okay, I did not know that.
Yeah,
but Marian, it will just take some space on Tableau server, but in terms of rendering, it has no impact at all.
But it will take some space, and your data source, if you have an extract, will not be optimized, because the other dashboard will probably use different fields.
Right, indeed. Yeah, but that's creating useless visualizations. But
yeah, exactly. But I'm also very aware of the Tableau server problem.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say, if you made 3 versions of the same dashboard and you don't want to like lose them and just have them in your workbook, it's perfectly fine. Just publish the one that you
I hope to keep different version on my computer, but my version that I publish is totally clean. I clean it up everything.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay.
No, but what I'm trying to say is when you publish a workbook, you can choose to publish one dashboard, but the workbook still contains everything, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
If you download, it contains everything.
Yeah.
But what you publish is what is rendered. So for the user,
it's render. Exactly, but it occupies space. Exactly. We all agree.
Based on the server. Sure.
We agree.
Yeah, this is very interesting.
From the point of view of a Tableau developer, like I really publish a lot of shit.
I love
hidden.
using Tableau server as a repository.
So exactly.
This is a fascinating discussion for me, because I'm always like, no, I'll just put it, especially when you're doing development with other people. It's just I'll same as you, Fatima. I'll just publish anything. It will just be hidden. I never thought about the space considerations. Yes. Which I guess for a server admin is a pain. Yeah.
I am a developer and a server admin. So yes.
Yeah, yes. I see your pushback. I see your pushback.
Are there any, everyone is welcome. Sorry, I interrupted, but I just wanted to say everyone is welcome to unmute and ask questions if they want. Just making sure people are aware they can participate.
Whilst people are thinking, I want to thank Marian and Annabelle again, and it was really, really useful. We have someone who wants to ask a question.
I have a question. Yes. So, do you have resources on how to combine more illustrations, more Adobe illustrations with your dashboards? I mean, I know you say it's a performance issue if you start doing a lot of custom icons and pictures. Is there some combination ways to maybe insert charts, Tableau into other documents to help that problem? I mean, I see people with these amazing custom illustrations on their dashboards. Do you know, maybe they're not built for performance. I'm lost on that. I need a little guidance.
If you have one image, nothing will happen. Your dashboard will be fast. Don't worry. It's like more if you have like, let's say, 200 custom shape displaying on the same time on your, instead of having every dot for a runner, you have a picture of the runner.
Yeah.
That's it will not be fast, you see. It's just like, it's a question of equilibrium. If you have some, I just mentioned this, that you are aware that if you have a performance issue one time, maybe it's because you have 200 custom shape. That's it. That is like, otherwise Tableau has done a big performance progress on the past years. So
thank you. I love your background.
Thank you. I did it myself.
It's gorgeous. I love all those birds.
I mean, I mounted myself. I bought that. And I just cover. I cover it myself. Like that will be.
You didn't need to say that.
I wish I have this talent. It's not so.
We have another question on the chat box. What is your opinion about color encoding regarding less is more?
I think
this is a good one.
This could take a while.
It could, yes. Let's tackle it for the next 5 minutes, maybe. I'm very curious.
I remember, I don't know who it's for, but I remember a comment that someone made once on that is that they start out designing everything in black and white and gray, so no color. And only at the end will they kind of take a look at where does it make sense to add color and how will that contribute to the dashboard being more effective or better relaying the information. And I think that's a good way to go about it.
I do it like this, but it's not, this idea is not coming from me.
Yeah, I know. I don't remember. It's one of those things of who said it first, but I think that's a great way to start with it, right? Start with nothing and then only add it in at the end. Because I think if you start with all of the colors of the rainbow, you tend to go overboard and you end up with like, I think the limit should be, I don't know. There should be a limit on that, but I think that's the smart way to go about it. That would be my advice. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there, but
no, I think it was a question for you, Marian.
I don't know if who it was for, but yeah, I think that's a good way to, multiple chart and multiple color legends, and I think maybe you have the wrong charts or the wrong information, or you need to rethink how you're going to pull it all together. That's what I would think, but I've been there as well.
Yeah, I think on this point, multiple charts and multiple color legends, just practically speaking, I have been there, and I think with the new hidden containers in Tableau, I think you can get rid of multiple legends, seriously.
Also, yes, and there's a lot of different ways that you can add a legend to a dashboard, right? So I think there's certain things that you can do.
I like to put like an annotation and hide the legend here.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Okay. Any more comments or questions for our speakers? Okay, if not, I think we can probably close the session. I want to thank Annabelle and Marian so much for their amazing talks. And everyone for joining. The discussion was so engaging and interesting. And I hope everyone had fun. I certainly did.
I did too.
Yeah, thank you again, Marian and Annabelle. Again, reminder, we'll be sending all the amazing information that our speakers share with us today. You'll get that along with the recording of the meeting, the link to the recording of the meeting in your email box soon. And we'll host another event in September. So keep an eye out for that as well.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Annabelle. Thanks, Marian. And everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.